Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Khatija Zahid, and I will be moderating today's event. This is our second webinar in our Taqat-e Pakistan series, and we are very excited to have you with us today. So a bit about the series. We plan to highlight the striking efforts and capabilities of Pakistanis, which brings me to my next point. We are joined here today with these really incredible people. Our guest panelists, we have Mahmood Panjwani, who is on the APF Board of Directors, and he's also the CEO and founder of Vitaliti, I believe.
Right. That would be in Italian, yeah, but American would be
Thank you.
Vitaliti.
Perfect. Okay, and we also have Sara Rana, who is the CEO and co-founder of MedLitAI, which is focused on it's a health tech company utilizing AI to serve as a virtual physician assistant. She is looking to improve the accuracy of clinical decision making. We also have Mariam Nusrat, who is she is the APF, one of our rising stars from last year. She's also the founder and CEO of Brishna, I believe. That is a patented no-code platform that empowers users to rapidly create, distribute, and monetize their own video games. Finally, we have our host for today. We have Amber Chaudry. She is also a rising star from last year. She is a senior strategic and operational leader with a record in spearheading organizational transformation. And she also oversees complex projects to rebuild trust in the federal government. I would like to take a minute and provide a very brief overview. We're first going to hear from our guest panelists and also open the floor for questions. It's very important that we have time for questions, so we would love it if we could potentially for your answers to be between 1 to 2 minutes. And for the audience, please ensure that you utilize the Q&A box for questions. And Amber, I'm going to turn this over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Khadija, and thank you three for being here with us. I am super excited about our chat today. It is going to be all about health tech and innovation ventures. And so I'm just going to jump right into it. So as a customer experience officer, I know that each venture starts off with a very thorough understanding of the problem. And in order to do that, you really need to do a lot of research with your customers to figure out what their needs are and their jobs to be done, especially when it comes to disruptive innovation. So I want to start off with a question for all three of you all. How did you know that there was a problem that needed to be solved? And where did you get that idea and inspiration? And Sara, we're going to start off with you.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And that goes back to that theme of, product customer fit. So I think what's really important is I was in this space for a long time as a medical student. It was so frustrating to have to access so many different apps, websites, Google Scholar, PubMed, all these different things just to get to one solution. And so with the rise of AI, I was like, why don't we make a user-friendly chatbot that just populates everything in one space? I think what's really important when you're trying to figure out whether you really understand the customer and the need. I went through this boot camp. So I was a student at NYU, and they had this big entrepreneur lab. And so they made us interview at least 50 customers, and each interview gave such good insights into what the problems are and what the solutions are. And 50 was the minimum number. And our mentors could tell if we had interviewed less than 50 because we didn't get to the insights that we need to get to. So it's really important to just boots on the ground, really get to know the industry you're in, the customer, and what they really need.
Thank you, Sara. Mahmood, over to you.
Yeah, so let me just layer on top of what Sara just said. So I got started because I've been a Stanford's accelerator. It's called StartX. I was a mentor at StartX for 10 plus years, and I've mentored over 24 companies, and half my mentee companies were in health tech. So even though by training I'm not a health tech professional, I learned a lot about the whole healthcare space, and longevity is something that has come up quite powerfully over the last, say, 5 years or so, maybe 10 years. And so we did exactly what Sara did, talk to a whole bunch of customers, at least about 50 of them. But then something else happened to us, right? We talked to them, we built a product, we went out there, and we were struggling with a product market fit, as just Sara said, because you can talk to the customers and you can try to build something that they think they want. When you go out there, the product market fit is such a complicated thing. There's like so many arcs to it. Like exactly, ultimately, how do you create a high gross margin business? And we were struggling with that. How do you create a 50% gross margin business, a 60% gross margin business, a 70% gross margin business? And that's the kind of level of detail that we had to get into. So I think we're almost there yet, but it's not easy.
And Mariam, you're not exactly in health tech, but does that process of talking to customers look the same? And if so, like, where did you get the idea for your venture?
Yeah, so I think something that's common across the panelists here is, I mean, when you think about startups, a lot of time it's like, I have a solution, now let me go look for a problem to solve it. And I think that's probably not the best way to approach a startup, to like start a startup for the heck of having a startup. I think for me, I'm an economist by academic training. I spent 15 years working at the World Bank in education policy, working across 22 different countries. So being a gaming founder was nowhere on the horizon. And I think what happened, something that I experienced, was this last mile problem of behavior change, whether it's education or health or financial literacy or climate action. And one of the things I realized was I grew up playing games like SimCity, where you were learning about urban planning without even knowing you were learning about urban planning. So that's where I was like, all right, you know what? Games are a powerful behavior change tool. So let's see if we can utilize them. But very quickly, and this is the power, I didn't really formally talk to 50 people, but I was in the international development sector, and I very quickly realized that it's not that people don't realize the power of games, but it's actually the fact that they're very expensive, very timely, and very costly to create, and very resource heavy to create. So that's where we were like, we actually started doing on the side a gaming studio. We worked for 8 years with different organizations building low-cost mobile games for positive impact. So we made a period game where you're catching pads with a pair of undies, and you're learning about reproductive health and all this idea of like health behavior changes through games. And 3 years ago, we were like, you know what? We just need to remove ourselves from the equation. Rather than being a service-based studio, rather than being the gaming studio, we need to empower people to make their own video games. And that was the birth of Brushnum, which is the Canva for purposeful gaming. So anyone can make their own video games without any coding, without any design skills. And it's been 3 years on the startup journey, and it's been epic. But yeah, I mean, that deep familiarity with the problem, I think all the panelists shared it. And I think that's what makes it a really strong, at least the beginning of product market fit.
Can I just jump in here for a second? Brashna is such a beautiful name. I'd never heard of that. Where did it come from?
Thanks so much for asking that, Mahmood. So my mom's a Pathan. It's actually a word in Pashto that means lightning. So it's video games at lightning speed. So, you can make a game in 15 minutes. So it's that whole lightning speed. You see the lightning bolt behind me. So the whole thing is basically it's lightning in Pashto.
I love it.
Thank you.
I think we should get to Pashto more often here. We can get more words out of it.
Well, just to stay on that a little bit, Mariam, because you said that you're Pathan, right? And Pathans are really known for being really strong and powerful people. And I had imposter syndrome all up until COVID, when I realized like everybody's just faking it till they make it, right? So can you just tell me, like, did you just wake up as this powerful like CEO, or like what gave you the confidence to pursue your venture, and how do you feel like it's solving that problem in the market?
Yeah, 100%. So Amber, I'm going to try to not take away from because I really want to hear from Mahmood and Sara on this as well. But very quickly, like my Baba, I was in 3rd grade, and he came to me with 3 logos, and he was like, you're going to go to LUMS, you're going to go to London School of Economics, and then you're going to work at the World Bank. 3rd grade, I don't know what the World Bank is. There was no doctor or engineer. It was like you're going to be an economist at the World Bank. And I was like, all right, I'm going to be an economist at the World Bank. So when I did become one of the youngest senior economists at the bank, I was living my dream, my Baba's dream. So once again, this idea of just becoming a gaming founder wasn't on the horizon, but because we did it as a side gig, I realized I started looking into venture capital. I didn't know the difference between a VC and an angel. And I was like, what am I going to do? And I have a feeling, I think one of the things I realized, everyone has imposter syndrome if you don't have confidence. And the only way to get confidence is to have practice, right? So I learned venture capital on Twitter and YouTube. I self-taught myself. I was fundraising for 7 months. I was not a founder who was like, I was a first-time founder, no business background in DC, where the tech scene is pretty much dead. It's like and everything. And I was getting on people's cold outreach. And to date, we've raised $2.6 million from investors like Paris Hilton, Randy Zuckerberg, Bill Ackman's family office. And that took us a long time. But I think the only way to get over imposter syndrome is to practice, practice, practice. So now I have, whether it's pitching, storytelling, building a team, getting to know your product. And I think the one thing I knew was that I saw a tomorrow, which I knew that no one else was building, right? So that conviction of saying what TikTok did for video, what Canva did for design, I can do for video games. I think that was the conviction where I was like, I'm going to empower the next 100 million people to tell their stories through video games.
That is amazing, Mariam, and such a good role model for other women as well. Mahmood, I want to go to you next because I heard that you are an OG. You took your company, I think the first Pakistani American to take your company to IPO. So you've been doing this for decades. So let us have a little bit of your sage advice and tell us what gave you the confidence and how is Vitaliti feeling that their place in the marketplace?
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I actually have to tell you, I just want to just shut up and listen more to what Miriam has to say because she's just her story is just so powerful. But since we have a panel here, I will answer. No, I think my personality, for some strange reason, I've never had to have an imposter syndrome. I have always, I think because I'm my father's son, he was just a very calm, generous guy, very, very completely in tune with himself, comfortable with his own skin. And I've always felt that way about me. So it comes both from me and my father and my mother. And I just, and my father would say, jo karna hai, sahi karo. Whatever you want to do it right. Put your heart into it. And that's it. Then let things happen. And I've always took that advice, is do it right. And so what Miriam was just saying, just she read and read and read. Yeah, you have to be at a point where you think like, you know what? I know more about this shit than anybody else in the world. Is that imposter syndrome? Do you really believe it? Yeah, of course, you're not being arrogant about it, but you just have to have this confidence and yeah, I've done my homework. And then just go out and do it.
I love it. Hearing a theme of confidence. And Sara, I think that your story is so interesting because you went from a doctor to getting your MBA and now starting up your own company, which I think can give others confidence that they can do this too. But can you tell us a little bit more about was that journey scary? What gave you the confidence? And how do you feel your company is doing with fulfilling that need in the marketplace?
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting because I come from a family full of physicians. No one is in business. No one knows about startups. It was very new. I remember when I started, I also had no idea what I was doing. I learned from one or two friends I had around me who were founders too. We would get together because I think being a founder can be a very isolating experience, and the ability to really find anyone around you who also is going through that journey just understands that, you might be up until 3 a.m. one day doing something, you're working on the weekends, it's your baby and you're always working to make it better and better. And I think going back to Mahmood's point about how, yes, there's a product customer fit, but there's also an ability to continue to make the product better, to, you know, change it up, there are always modifications you can do. And so we had this chatbot, but now we're thinking about a pricing model because we talked to more physicians and they were like, you know, we really want to save costs as a hospital. So we started building that. And I think the ability to really just continue to grow, and, you know, there's like an end vision at sight, but the ability to really change and adapt to your environment is really important. And I think what's really exciting about the journey is my co-founder is also my uncle, who was also born and raised here, and he was very pro, you know, do what you want, don't worry about what like the noise is saying. And I think that ability to really just, you know, do what you really love, and something that's so beautiful, that work isn't just work, but it's actually something you like love doing every day and you wake up and you're excited about it. I think that's like a really important point when thinking about what you want to do. But it was so scary. I didn't know anyone who was doing this. Like everyone around me, no one knew anything about startups or business. And I think it's always scary to do something new, but along the way, you just learn so much, and it's very rewarding and exciting.
And Sara, I feel like you mentioned that you have a co-founder, and sometimes that co-founder can really give you strength to really like actually do the thing. And so I, as a co-founder of Muslim Americans in Public Service, I know, you know, who your co-founder is so important. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you chose your co-founder? I don't know, you know, why did your uncle choose to join you in this idea?
Yeah, so I have two co-founders. One is my uncle, and one is actually a guy I met through networking in New York, and we just stayed friends. He was an AI engineer, super interesting. We interviewed and we loved him. We pitched our idea. He was super excited about the journey. So I think the first thing to kind of mention is the power of your network and the ability to really build relationships, because you never know where it's going to go. I'd say my uncle, so he's a transplant surgeon. So we built actually an AI tool that accesses medical risk scores, guidelines, literature, and he and I created about 50 of our own risk scores as well. And so he was in this space for 15 years. He came to me and he was like, I know you're now getting into the business world. Like, I really just need someone to like run all the investing and the business side, and I'm going to do the medicine side, and we need a tech guy. So then I went out, found my friend, we all joined together. It's been a year now, alhamdulillah. It's been really great and rewarding. But I think I always describe the co-founder relationship kind of like a marriage, because you see each other through best, worst, you know, their communication styles, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, how to get something done from someone, how to look at someone's strengths, someone's weaknesses, and how to really work through all of that. So yes, it's a really important process. And I'd say to really find a good co-founder, take as long as you want to, because it is something that is just like a lifelong relationship.
Can I just jump in here for 1 second? You know, I've looked at, you know, over the last decades I've been here, I've looked at literally hundreds of startups, you know, up close, where I've gotten to know founders and co-founders. And I can tell you over 50% of the failures happened because the co-founders were not a good match. Probably way more than 50%. Yeah. And I've actually suffered through that myself. So
no, and I think building on that, right, like what Mahmood just said, because I think I was very, very critical of not just giving out the co-founder title. I think like it's almost like maybe it's the accelerator model. I don't know what it is, but this emphasis on like, who's your co-founder? Who's your co-founder? It's like, it's really like, are you building a team and who's going to build your product? I think what the question they're asking is, do you have the right team? But they often end up asking, who's your co-founder? So I was working with my brother, you know, in the gaming studio, the side gig we had, and we'd been doing that for 8 years. We were working with developers and designers. We had a team of 25 developers that we'd worked with, and we were handpicking the ones that would join us on this venture-backed model. So I had basically both my brother and my husband were both working on the startup with me. But it took me 7 months to even give them co-founder titles, right? I was like, you're going to earn it. Like, you're going to be the COO, you're the CFO, I'm the CEO. That's what matters. The roles matter more. Like, and yes, there's an equity distribution, but I think this anxiousness of just like, you know, I mean, I see people even before they have their their business model, before they have their MVP planned out, they're like, let me go find a co-founder. And I think it's almost like, I mean, it's not something that needs to happen on day one, because you have to be thoughtful about that. And I think family co-founders, there's obviously things you want to be careful about, but it's a huge strength because you know each other's communication styles and you know each other's strengths and weaknesses. So you mark your lane and then you go with it. You just have to work on finding closure, because then work never stops. So you do got to find that. But I think I have both co-founders, my brother and my husband, and I love it.
Can I just build up on that one more, just 60 more seconds? So at iManage, the company that I took public, my wife was my co-founder and my best buddy from childhood were my co-founder, right? So it's like my best buddy and my wife. And sometimes they would like argue with each other and like, I'll be the referee. Oh my God, it is not easy. It is not easy. So when and then I've done several startups since then, and I've always had a co-founder. This time around, I'm an engineer by training, and this is a healthcare startup. And so I was desperately looking for a co-founder. I spent 6 months, and I probably talked to dozens of people, and I couldn't find a co-founder. I was looking for a doctor who was in the healthcare space, who was in longevity, who was an integration medicine specialist, because those were the things. And we couldn't find somebody. We just could not. And so we said, okay, you know what, we'll start. And we did. And I'm the solo founder. So after having done over 10 companies, the first time in my life, I'm a founder of a healthcare startup, and I have zero knowledge about, as a trainee, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, and yet I'm at the helm of a healthcare startup, right? Because I couldn't find it, we got going, and now I have a great team of people. I surround myself with scientists and doctors, and so I always tell people, when I'm giving you doctor's advice, careful, because I'm probably not right. That's why I surround myself with doctors.
So I think what I'm hearing is be very picky with your co-founder. And so, Mariam, I want to ask you this question, but I kind of want to hear from everyone as well. Your platform for games sounds amazing, and everything is like rainbows and butterflies, but I kind of want to like peek behind the curtain a little bit. And would love to hear, what are some of the challenges that you faced with Breshna, and how have you addressed those challenges?
Yeah, Amber, I actually feel like this is not doubling down on video games, but it is a little bit. I actually feel like the entrepreneur journey is like a game itself, where at each level, there's like a boss, and that boss changes, that villain changes at every level, right? So it's like when you start building, it's like, who's going to build with you? The co-founder, the team, blah, blah, blah. Like, what you're building first, it's like what you're building, does it even have value? Do people need it, right? What's the problem you're solving? That's that boss. Then you're like, okay, who's going to build it with you? You identify the team. And then I think something that's a significant challenge for a lot of founders, which I also faced, was who's going to invest in it, right? Who's going to fund it? And I think 2% of VC funding goes to women, let alone like immigrant, women of color, all of that. But I think as a founder, you can have two approaches. Either look at all of the odds that are stacked against you, or look at all of the windows of opportunity, right? And I think as sure, yes, I'm brown and I'm Muslim and I'm a woman and I'm like first-time founder and all of that, but there's also so many windows of opportunity that are opening up for us. Like, I mean, this is the best time compared to any time in the past to be a female founder, right? So it's like, okay, let's start today. Today is literally the best time as compared to any other time. So for me, the funding was something that was hard to do. It's like, I mean, I got on 219 investor calls to get 29 yeses to raise $2.6 million, right? So it's just something that you have to show up every single day with that resilience, and every phone call you're going to get knocked out. But one thing I realized was a no is actually a not now with investors. Often they invest in lines, not dots. So you have to show them that momentum and that traction. So I would always be like, that's fine if you're saying a no, can I add you to my investor update list? And I didn't have any investors, but I was sending an investor update every single month. And I think it's that momentum and traction that people watch, right? So I think that's one boss level. And then it was user growth. So we got to 180,000 registered game makers that have created over 160,000 video games with more than 2 million gameplays. So that was like, all right, is someone going to use it? And now 2024, our biggest thing is, how do we monetize to get to profitability? Because we have certain ARR benchmarks to hit to get to Series A. So I feel like every single level has a different boss. So now, right now, it's profitability for me, because once we hit that, then we get to Series A. And if you don't, I'm sorry for my language, you're shit out of luck, right? Because it's like, I mean, it doesn't matter everything you've done before, because if you don't get to that last level, game over, you start from the beginning. So I think for me, it's just been really exciting to take it one boss, one challenge at a time and build on that. But if you keep your hand on the pulse and if you build something that's valuable, I think it starts to happen, and you see and you tweak and you learn and you fail fast and you fail forward.
Mariam, I feel so pumped listening to you. And I think it's also important for the audience to know that, like, if you lose a level, you can just start again, right? And just get back up and start playing again. And Sara, as a former federal employee, I have worked with so many people who want chatbots, right? They want chatbots, but they don't really have a thorough understanding of their business problem. And so I kind of wanted to ask you the same question, like, what are some of the challenges that you've run into, especially because you've said that there are so many different apps and things that physicians have to interact with on a daily basis?
Yeah, so I'd say kind of the first thing we started out with is we were like, let's do all of general medicine. But then we thought about it further and we were like, I think if we start small and specialize and get good at that, then we'll be able to get further into each kind of specialty. So we started with transplant surgery, we built that out, went to the American Transplant Conference, presented there, and continued to build that out. Then we had another medical student who joined us, and so she was really into OBGYN. So we worked with her, kind of built that out. And then we are moving to emergency medicine, building that out, bringing some emergency medicine physicians. So I think first, the ability to really specialize into a small little sector and be like, let's try to build this out, learn, see what we can do better, and then continue to go further and further, kind of how Mariam was saying, how it's like a game. And I think like something that's also really interesting. And so I was telling my friends just like some challenges, first of all, like, is this going to be successful? Like, are people going to want to do this? I don't know. But then we went to the American Transplant Conference and they loved the tool because there was just like so fast that you could get all these answers and percentages in such like a short amount of time. And the fact that you didn't have to go through so many apps and tools was so exciting for them. But to a typical tech guy, this is just like a standard chat GPT bot. Like, why is this so exciting? But I think like another thing about the healthcare space is it tends to be a little bit slower when it comes to tech and innovation and like new ideas in that sense. And so I think for us, like, it was super exciting as physicians, but in terms of the tech world, people were like, why is this so great? And I think the ability to really show that bridge was like really important, to focus on who our customers were, which were physicians, and who needed this like tool that was pretty simple but made things a lot easier. And then I think when we started talking with hospitals, they were talking about, okay, but how does this make pricing better? And so then we were like, okay, so we're going to break it down by, when this organ comes in, what's that cost going to be? Like, how are we going to save money for you? When it goes out for delivery, how are we going to save money for you? And so I think like having that ability to really be open-minded and change. And again, I think also with investing, like, that's also a really interesting point, because I'm also on the venture side as well. So I look at thousands of, startups a day, pitch decks, so many people come to me, but I'd say that I think the team is really important. B is really being able to hit those metrics, because they are important. We do unfortunately look at numbers. And 3, I'd say, is the ability to not be afraid of failure and pivot and change and adapt is really important.
And I think that half the battle sometimes is just learning how to tell that story to others as well. And Mahmood, I think that you had shared that there are some behavior changes that have to do with your company. So I would love to hear what some of the challenges that you faced with bringing your product to market as well.
Yeah, I'm just amazed that Miriam is actually behavior change expert. I'd love to run my whole pitch by her to actually learn from her. So in 60 seconds, what we do, before I can tell you that, give an answer to that question, is we do a Mayo Clinic-like executive physical, but much better. When people go out to get their executive physical, it takes 2 days to get it all done in Mayo Clinic. We bring it all together in a 4-hour window. We bring it to a customer's doorstep, and we do it at a fraction of a cost. And at the end of that, we provide them with a report that has this terminology that we have created. It's called fast-moving biomarkers. which is completely connected to your cardiometabolic health. So if the FMBs, something like your VO2 max or your visceral fat or your fatty liver, these are not in the medical mainstream. They are scientifically well accepted, but your normal doctor will not check for that. So we do this amazing physical at a customer's doorstep in 4 hours at a fraction of your cost. And at the end of that, we give them a fast-moving biomarkers. Then after that, they have another choice to have another product. Do customers want to move their fast-moving biomarkers to improve their health in 12 weeks or less? And there's a lot of behavior change there. And so we've looked at tiny habits, atomic habits and, power of habits. And I've talked to all of these people and it's like, okay, how do we actually implement this so that we can do something very powerful in a 12-week window? And how do we incorporate all of that where it's a light human touch model, mostly driven by app? There's so many trade-offs there, right? So we're not there yet, but that's the last point that I'm trying to solve.
And Mahmood, just to stay on you a little bit, it would be great to know, what are some of the successes that you experienced with Vitaliti or maybe some of your other companies, either financially or socially as well? Like, how did you reach that milestone?
Well, I have to tell you, there's multiple answers here, but to go found a company and take it public on NASDAQ, this is in the late 90s, boy, what a thrill that was. And I'm an engineer, but I realized that I learned that I'm actually a very good numbers guy, and I enjoyed the process of running a company that was public, and then facing Wall Street, vultures basically, and then going through the early 2001 fall, when our stock collapsed, 85%, and then still have a successful exit, and then go face the investors and tell them the truth, what happened, and have the courage to tell them the truth. And I realized that, when you go down, that's what I was telling you earlier, right? When you go down and say, look, you are in tune with yourself, you are comfortable with your own skin, you're trying to be transparent and accountable in the best way you know how. It's a freaking awesome way to run things, run your life, run your friendship, run your household, run companies. So, yeah.
And that is certainly something to aspire to as well. And Mariam, you said that you have raised 2.6 million. Can you expand a little bit on that or share maybe some other successes that you've seen with Brashna so far?
I just want to take a moment to say, if anyone on this call didn't get goosebumps with what just Mahmood said, like, seriously, as a founder, taking a company public, being a NASDAQ, like, that is the dream. And to have someone in our presence who's done that with that amount of humility, I think it's like, I can't even follow that up and be like, let me tell you about the 2.6 million I raised. It's like, I just feel like, it's like, I don't think I can do justice to the conversation, but I do think that, I think numbers and everything is important, but I feel like as a founder, every day is that victory, right? I think like showing up every single day is the win. And I think to me, it's like, again, you have so many challenges and you're going to feel so much of that up and down. But if you have that persistence of showing up every single day, once you zoom out, you start to see that upward trajectory, right? It's like if you have that curve going up, day to day, it might feel like it goes up and down. But I think for us, like whether it's our user growth, whether it's the funds we've raised, whether it's the kind of, investors we have on our cap table, or whether it's where we're headed. Canva is a $40 billion company. I'm aspiring to be a decacorn, not just a unicorn, inshallah. So for that, you have to have that kind of trajectory and growth skill. But I think you have to show up every single day, because I'm not going to be a decacorn tomorrow. I have to show up every single day and do what I need to do towards that North Star. So I think that's the victory. That's the win. But also, honestly, I don't have an answer after Mahmood. I'm a little bit fangirl mode right now, and I'm totally fine with that.
Well, let me stop you right there. Can I just put my APF board member hat on for a second? Can we look at this panel here for a second? I'm the only male. There's Amber you, there's Sara you, there's Miriam you, and there's Khatija, all female. Freaking awesome. How amazing is this? So no, the whole fan girl, the fanboy, it goes all around here.
But it's a mutual fan club here. I love that. It's like we're all winning together.
I hope we have an audience here.
Definitely. And Mariam, I want to throw an inshallah on that as well. So wishing you the best of luck. And so, Sara, I'm going to throw it over to you to answer that same question.
I'm so sorry. I just first want to say, I think that's like this is just so beautiful because I remember as a kid, like I didn't know about anyone who was not a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, and this is just really incredible. And I feel like when APF came to me, it was just so exciting that you guys were doing this to really inspire young kids, because I wish that there was something like this when I was a kid growing up here. So I just want to say thank you, first of all, for that. Second of all, I just was so blown away by the two responses. Can you please repeat the question?
So the question is, can you share some success stories that you've had with your company thus far?
Yeah, so my co-founder is a professor at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston. And so we're getting to the point when, inshallah, we're going to have a pilot there. And so that's like been pretty exciting because it's a pretty big hospital system in the Texas area. And I think the second kind of success for us was going to the American Transplant organization and really just getting validation from all these different users. We've had all these people download the app, and now we're like doing a subscription service. So it's been pretty exciting. I actually went the angel investing route. And so we were able to raise $4 million, alhamdulillah, through just friends and family. I feel like, it's really interesting, the VC space, now that I'm kind of transitioning into it. And so I think first, like really being able to touch into some kind of accelerator program is super important, because I think it really just gives you kind of a foot door into the space, and you learn from these experts who are all mentors on these different, accelerator programs, and they're really there to help you. And I think it's just a great way to get in. So I was with NYU, and now I'm kind of in this VC fund where we have a whole kind of fund. It's called Capital Factory, based in Austin. And so we just take 1% equity for life, and we're with you through it all. We give you the best mentors, help you with your first investment rounds, introduce you to the best people we know. We've been in the space. We're the biggest VC firm in Texas. So I think like something like that is super important, because I like myself didn't even know about like funds like this that could do that for you. But I think having the ability to really have that partnership is so helpful and meaningful, especially when, you're kind of new at this and you're really learning. I'd say another kind of success story for us was that we were able to get approved to go to an AI conference in Saudi Arabia with the king. It's an AI conference, so that was pretty exciting. And we're like having our co-founder present there. So these are all kind of exciting things, but it's just been a year, of course. And I think the main thing to kind of think about as a founder is it is a marathon. It's not a race. So you do have to be persistent and continue to remember what the mission and values are behind every single little moment. And I think, as Mariam had mentioned, just, celebrating each win every day, it's like super important, because you just want to remember what you're doing at the end of the day.
And can I just congratulate you, Sara, because in this market, being 1 year, just being one, and already having, did you say 4 million in angel funding? Like, that's amazing. Like, that's wild. Kudos to you, because like most seed rounds aren't that big. Like, that's amazing. That's really, really cool. So congratulations. And I think this is such an inspiring panel. So congrats to you.
I totally agree with that. I mean, 4 million in angel funding, I've not heard of that. Yeah, that's even in Silicon Valley. So that's amazing. Yeah.
Well, I definitely am feeling so inspired by all three of you all. And as a former small business administration employee, I do want to plug that SBA funds accelerators all across the US. So definitely try to find one in your area, because accelerator programs are amazing for startups. I do want to kind of transition into just figuring out what's next for your companies. And so, Sara, since you just kind of ended, would love to throw it back to you to hear a little bit more about what's next.
Yeah, so I'd say that we want to kind of hopefully have some kind of tool for every single specialty. So right now we're just, transplant surgery and emergency medicine, OBGYN, but I think everything from, pediatrics to cardiology to nephrology, just hepatology, just to really get into every single space and make and populate, all the important kind of risk scores and guidelines that are out there for each medical physician. And I think eventually, inshallah, if we can, sell to Epic and be able to integrate with them, that would be great. More hospital systems. So that, yeah, that's our vision.
Oh, don't sell to Epic.
Really? They're that bad?
We'll get into that a little bit more,
We
but
can have a
Sara,
side conversation about that, but
Yeah.
I'll throw inshallah for whatever is best.
Yeah, honestly,
And
like, and I think something that I kind of want to mention is when we started this, we didn't really know it was going to be successful or not, but we were like, we're just like, we really want to get into the startup space. Let's see what happens. And I think like having that kind of mindset really helped us just really learn and grow from each other and be able to kind of reach milestones that we ourselves are pretty surprised by, And so I think, sometimes like cutting off the stress and just really enjoying and embracing the process is also a good thing while you're kind of transitioning to something new.
definitely. And Mahmood, don't judge me because I'm going to age myself, but I just saw a TikTok of someone going to Turkey to do like a full day of like these tests and stuff. And so like the fact that you are bringing this to your like doorstep and having more control of your health data, I think is so exciting. So again, would love to hear a little bit more about like what's next for your company because I want to try it.
So, when COVID hit, I thought, okay, I was done, with my career, and I'm just going to hang it up and, just go out, into the sunset. And then this idea just emerged, and it just has grabbed a hold of me, and I'm here. And so, really, our promise to our customer is a little edgy, maybe even arrogant. What we want to do is offer extra years in good health to all of humanity. Extra years in good health. Is it edgy? Is it arrogant? Is it doable? Not through some therapeutics, but just through lifestyle. To us, lifestyle is food, diet, movement, exercise, and sleep, plus vitamins, nutrients, and a lot of other things, right? So we've solved so many problems: science, medicine, AI, engineering, logistics, and now we are at this behavior change. And so we have a corporate customer. They've been a customer for over a year. They love it. We've done this with them. We have a second corporate customer, and we have had enough successes, and we've got a line of customers right now that are interested in doing what we are doing. If we can get maybe 6 or 8 more customers who can validate that what we are doing is really working, and it actually gives them extra years in good health, and they feel it, and in the process, we can save them money as a business-to-business sale, then what Miriam is saying is exactly right. That why limit yourself to a unicorn? So, but it's not about money. In our case, what really inspires and motivates me, and every morning I get up and I feel such intense gratitude. It's like, oh my God, I've had such an amazing life, so fortunate to be here. And I get up every morning and I get to do what I'm really enjoying and loving to do. So if in the process, we can actually move the needle on improving people's health across the world, it's not about another search engine or another chip company or another software company or some social media or online. No, we're talking about offering something meaningful to people. It just inspires me. It just makes me work so hard. I just can't wait for the future to come forward. And I just pray. I tell my mom, please pray for me, because you can do everything right and it still cannot work. It still may not work. So I'm mindful of that.
And definitely an important reminder as well. So Mariam, for you, what's next?
Yeah, I think, Amber, I often tell my Baba this. I'm like, I went from living your dream to now you living my dream. So this is my version of the life that we thought about together. And I think, again, long-term goal, 100 million people can tell their stories through video games. I grew up playing games where it was always the New York City skyline and the white dude in the yellow cap, right? I didn't see myself in these games. I didn't see Pakistan in these games. I didn't see, the clothes, the music, all of that. So we're saying if you want to diversify content, you have to democratize the process of content creation. So for us, that's that goal. But right now, our short-term goal is education and marketing video games. So we're working with marketing experts to create bite-sized branded video games that they can use for marketing, for social impact, for behavior change. So that's kind of like, where we're headed. And I think it's just an exciting journey. And I think I completely share that feeling with Mahmood. Is like every single day you wake up just so thrilled with that fire in your belly, and you're like, I'm gonna go change the world. Like that is just such an amazing honor to have that feeling, and that's a blessing from Allah.
I think that the phrase democratizing the creation is such an exciting phrase as well. So like we need to tattoo that on your forehead or something like that. So I definitely want to invite everybody to put their questions in the chat at this time. And in the meantime, I would love to ask you three, like for anyone in the audience who wants to get into the entrepreneurial space, like what advice do you have for them? What one piece of advice do you have? And Mahmood, I'm gonna start off with you.
I think a lot of what we've already talked about has actually been said, which is you really have to be the best that you can be. If you're going to do a startup, what you're really communicating to the world is, I've got something that, and I think Miriam said that nobody else has, or maybe Sara said that nobody else, they don't see it the way I do. Have you really done that? It comes down to the very first word that Quran had, Iqra. You have to read. You really have to read. You have to read and read and read. And now, of course, read here means also to watch a ton of YouTube videos and do the research, basically. Yeah, just be very good at it. And then you have to go all out. You cannot be afraid of failure. And you have to be ego checked. That's my first value, by the way. You have to be ego checked, and you have to be a servant leader. You don't go out there for glory or money. You go out there because you're solving a problem that you think that it needs to come to the world. So do it for the right reasons, be ego checked, be a servant leader, empower people, share the credit, give away the credit. Just make sure that you are delivering to your own expectation, be transparent to yourself, to your team, and be accountable to yourself and to your team.
I actually want to add to that. And I really want to mention like how you kind of seen how everyone's talked about their project. It's because they have a passion and drive and mission behind what they're doing. So I would encourage whoever is, wanting to get into entrepreneurship, what makes you wake up every morning? What inspires you? What do you want to change? And for me, I always thought, even if it's a small impact, I want to make some impact on the world and make someone's life easier. So I think in all of this, kind of the theme is, what are you excited about? What makes you excited? What makes you want to read about? Whatever you're passionate about, and really go out there and don't be afraid of failure. You can pivot, you can change. People do many startups. They learn, they fail, they don't. It's okay. But the fact that you're able to really just have that grit, persistence, and that intellectual curiosity, you will do well.
Yeah, and just building on that, I feel like, God, this whole session, I've been on a handful of these, but I think like this one's like a TEDx talk on its own. It's just been so inspiring and such a positive vibes kind of a session. But I think I really do have these like very cliche 3 Ps where I'm like passion, perseverance, and purpose, right? So like what we're saying is like, do something that lights a fire in your belly. Every morning you want to go do something. You're not doing it for the money. Don't start a startup if you want to get rich. This is not a get rich fast strategy. I mean, go work at one of the top 5 tech companies. You'll probably end up making more money. It's like, this is about building a future that you believe in. This is about looking into the crystal ball and saying, this is what I'm passionate about. This is the tomorrow that I see and I want to go build it. And then it's like perseverance, right? Like, I mean, everyone who's had a shower has an idea. Ideas are plenty. Don't worry about your idea being stolen. It's like, worry about execution. It's like execution is what is unique to you. Out-execute everyone else, and that you will do with perseverance by showing up every day. And then there's purpose. I mean, you can show up every day, but do a bunch of different things, and then it's diluted effort. So have a purpose, have a North Star. So for me, it's always passion, perseverance, purpose. So show up with those 3 Ps, and inshallah, things work out.
Wow. I am feeling so inspired by you three. Thank you for being 3 badasses in the Pakistani American community. And what a great way to kick off our Heritage Week as well. I don't see any Q&As, but I'm going to pass it over to Khadija now to help us moderate that and to close.
So we do have about 3 questions if we want to ask. So we have, how can the audience contact the panelists in the future, and where can they be followed? Anything else they want to plug?
I build in public on LinkedIn, Mariam Nusrat. Every single day I show up, I'm sharing the good, bad, and the ugly. So LinkedIn DM or emails, or at Brashna Game on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all of it. So, yeah, it's like, and I don't know, Amber, maybe we can write it out in the chat or something. I mean, but we're all accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for me, it's LinkedIn. I just do everything on there. So Sara Rana.
Yeah,
And
same here.
we will put that in the chat. But I did get a direct message about someone who would love to learn how to make connections and navigate the entrepreneurial space as a Pakistani American without connections in the industry. So if any of you all have advice on that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, nowadays with social media, it's the best way to kind of find out what entrepreneurship activities are going on wherever you live. And I'd say almost in every city now, there are so many meetups, hangouts. And I'd say that more and more you go to those events, the same people you keep seeing, the bigger your network grows, someone connects you to someone. So just trying to see 1 or 2 events where you can just go in and start meeting people is the best way to start.
Yeah, show up. You really have to show up. There's no substitute for, and don't show up in Zoom. Like, Zoom is fine, but it's not a substitute for in-person side conversations where, hey, can I ask you a question, and just walk with somebody. So showing up is so important. And just don't take yourself too seriously. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about what other people think of this or that, right? You are trying to learn, and you need to ask your questions, and you need to create clarity. So show up, ask the questions, read, follow up.
Thank you. We have another question. What's the best way to support burgeoning Pakistani entrepreneurship? Do you see challenges in getting venture capital interested in supporting new ventures?
Can I just say one thing here? I think something that's very Pakistani, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna make this like assumption, is if your friend has a restaurant or your friend has a product, the first thing that often friends and family ask is for a discount or for a freebie. That's not the way. The best way to support your friends and your startup and your founders is to go buy their stuff, is to go support it, is to talk about it, is to invest. If they're running an equity crowdfunding campaign, put $100 in it, right? I think we often, friends and family, surprisingly wait the most until you have traction to start supporting you. It's like it's often kind of sad that you get more support from strangers up front, and then kind of everyone else falls in line, and like, I mean, the doubt cast goes away. So don't buy from your founder friends, like support them, ask them, give them a follow, give them a like on social media. It doesn't take that much to show up for aspiring founders. Every little thing matters. So I think just go ask a founder, what do you want today? Do you want, like, it's like, do you want an Uber delivery? Do you want a like on your recent post, or do you want a new customer? I think intros are the best way to support founders.
I think jumping on that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think just being a friend, it doesn't have to be super business-like in every single situation. And I think the best relationship someone has, even with a mentor, is a friendship. So, as like Mariam said, maybe give a delivery because she was up late last night or she had a really hard day. Just hear about it, give a like, support, you share on your social media. That's what I do for all my founder friends. But why don't we all kind of build each other and really try to help each other in the best way we can? It doesn't always have to be a transactional kind of relationship, but really growing and building friendships is really important.
Yeah. Can I just add to one other thing, the transactional part that Sarah just talked about? It is so important to not be transactional. What's in it for me? Oh my God, please don't be that. Don't be that. This definition of happiness, I just read this. This is Alfred Adler, who was a psychiatrist from about 100 years ago. He created this definition, and I so believe that happiness is the feeling of contribution to your community. Happiness is feeling of contribution to your community. And community is this. You and I make a community. The 6 of us make a community. The APF is a community. This town or this village or this country is a community. It's up to you to decide how large, and ultimately the whole universe is a community. But be giving first. Don't say, oh, I'll give this much, so I'll get that much. That lessens it.
And I think just one thing on that, I think there's such a Hunger Games attitude towards especially tech startups. And I think it's the cake only gets bigger with collaboration. So that give first mentality is just so important. So just doubling down on that.
Thank you so much. We have a question for Mahmood Panjwani specifically. What does being a servant leader look like? What are decisions that a servant leader makes that contrasts with most leaders?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've been practicing that for 30 plus years. Servant leader simply means that I'm going to say something a little controversial here. The most important constituent that you are serving as a startup is not your customer. You are actually serving your people first, and they in turn serve your customer. So servant leader to me means that I am in tune with my people, with the team, my partners, my investors, my stakeholders, that I am actually making sure that they know how to get their jobs done, right? So that's it. You're being a servant to your people so that they can go serve your customers. And so part of that is an ego check, which is so important. Like, okay, what does ego check mean? It simply means it's not my way or highway. Let it be data-driven. Let it be data-driven. You go out there with a hypothesis, you go out there and you pitch it and you go, oh, that didn't work, or that worked, or we have to make this change or that means, let it be data-driven. Let it be very rapid-fire movement of ideas. So be ego-checked, be servant leader, and now you've got and of course the 3 Ps that Miriam talked about, cannot go without those 3 Ps. And now you've got something.
Anything anyone else like to add before we close everything out?
I really want to underline this. I think the kindness and humility on this panel is unfortunately an outlier and extraordinary. I think like people like Sara and Mahmood who've accomplished so much, and the humility that they're showing up with, I really think everyone who's listening can take that with them, because I think in this world this kindness and humility is fading. So capture it wherever you can find it. And I think kudos to APF and kudos to the community for putting together a panel that had so much humility and kindness on it.
Yeah, and I think adding on to that as a leader, I think it's really important to kind of show that you're on the same foot as everyone on your team and you're willing to learn as much as you are from them as you are from they are from you. I think that kind of relationship really makes people understand that, this is something we're doing beyond just, work, but we're really trying to get to a mission. We're really trying to make a difference. And like having everyone work together as a team is really inspiring. And I think going back to what Mahmood and Mariam said, and everyone on here has been so inspiring and amazing. I think kindness and humility is lacking, and people would come to me and be like, why are you nice? I'm like, that's just like how I grew up. This is how I am. But I think it is really important to be kind and humble throughout the process because, ultimately rizq is from Allah. Everything is luck. It's, fate. There's so many different factors that can go into it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everybody. I do want to give a quick shout out to the Heritage Week that we're having next week. As we know, our Independence Day is coming up. So we have an entire week dedicated to Pakistani events that sort of encompass our heritage, our culture, art, music, fashion, and we would love for everybody here to join us potentially. I'm also going to share our Linktree and the website where you can register for all of our upcoming webinars. Very exciting stuff happening at APF. And if nothing else, Allah Hafiz.
A
Thank
big
you
thank
all.
you, Amber. Thank you, Amber, for moderating. Seriously, thank you so, so much. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you all.
This
Thank
was
you so
way
much.
more fun than I expected. Thank you. Thank you to all of you.
Yes, thank you so much. This was so great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dan.
Bye.